Hi. The next part of this course on use of evidence in policymaking focuses on best practices for getting research used in policymaking, based largely on empirical studies in the area of knowledge transfer and knowledge exchange. There are a few key points that consistently emerge as best practices for use of research in policymaking. According to John Levis, the best practices come down to the answers of 4 questions. So first, what should be transferred to decision makers? And research suggests that messages that are actionable and come from a body of research knowledge and not just a single study are best communicated to policymakers. He also comments that ideas are most influential. We talked about this in the first part, that ideas in framing the way policymakers think about policy problems in the first place are probably most influential on policy decisions in the policy process than a specific study that comes out related to a policy decision. To whom should research knowledge be transferred? A key best practice here is that you should clearly identify who your target audience is up front and tailor your knowledge transfer dissemination strategy for that specific person or group, the environment, the topic, and the decision that you want to see changed. By whom should research knowledge be transferred? The messenger really matters. You want the messenger of your work to be someone who's credible and credible in the eyes of the person you want to reach. This could be an intermediary position, not the researcher at all, but someone in the role of knowledge broker who could be an advocate, a lobbyist, or a journalist, someone who sees their role as connecting information to policymaker and user communities. And finally, how should that research knowledge be transferred? I just want to emphasize that passive processes are largely ineffective. Waiting until the end of a study, producing a peer-reviewed journal, and then trying to communicate the work is probably not going to work. It needs to be an interactive process relying on personal engagement and ideally from the beginning of the research process. So I just want to continue more with that how theme. How, or what process to use to communicate research. Policymaking happens in bursts when there become windows of opportunity to act on a particular question. And to get your research heard in that time period, you want to seek out those windows of opportunity or even create some yourself in order for your research to be relevant in this policymaking space. I've already referenced this, but it's important to reiterate that the knowledge producers and end users must be interactive, maintaining ongoing links and relationships, and thinking about policymaking not just as a decision, although those decisions can come up and be extremely influential, but the whole process of setting policy agendas matters. You want to tailor your dissemination outputs to your end users to meet the end users' needs. And in-person communication really matters. We'll talk about social media and other forums, but I want to emphasize that the research consistently shows that when policymakers or other decision makers hear from researchers in person, that makes a big impact. And finally, you want to develop relationships with intermediaries, whether that be advocates in your community or media, and invest time and resources into these dissemination processes. And this is not just paying someone to make a pretty research brief at the end of your project. Research also suggests certain components of the content of the research output tend to lead to greater likelihood of impact on decision makers. For instance, framing your research in terms of how important that problem is really important. Talking about the local level, if you're trying to reach City Council in Philadelphia, talk about why this issue is relevant for people living in Philadelphia. Personalizing the issue, telling a compelling story and an anecdote while you're communicating your research can be really effective. And oftentimes there's certain types of research or certain types of information that are politically relevant, like the costs and benefits. Quantifying the costs and benefits of a given policy area or policy evaluation can be really effective. Emphasizing its timeliness, the timeliness of your research and the timeliness of the policy context that you want to match is important. If there is public support for your issue, bringing it up can be really politically effective. And always describing the policy recommendations, what the implications are, and making your communication jargon-free. And finally, I earlier just referenced that creating a pretty research brief is necessary but not sufficient. You can't just rely on a graphic designer to make your research look nice, although it is important to produce and package research evidence in short 1 or 2 page formats using bulleted text, easy to understand charts, and enticing title, headings, and color. But don't forget the value of face-to-face contact using the right credible messenger. So coming up in this course, we'll next hear about the strategic science process that Christina Roberto, a guest lecturer, will describe, and we'll have a Q&A with her. Thank you.